to talk about superfoods, and superfoods class is a neat one because not a lot of people equate what I'm going to share with superfoods. So everybody equates the blueberry or something like that or broccoli as like superfoods, but what we're going to show you today is actually the real superfoods. And a doctor friend of mine actually called it forbidden superfoods because we've been brainwashed into thinking that certain foods will make us sick, clog our arteries, and kill us. So what we're going to do is show you what the research shows, which is a lot different than what you hear on TV. You go to the doctor. I give a quick story before I get started. My dad, since he's not here, I can talk a little bit about him. So my dad, he's one of the most stubborn guys that I know. Stubborn because for 20 years I've been telling him about some of the information that you guys are going to get. For 20 years. My undergrad was in pre-med biology, and I took a lot of nutrition in my undergrad while I was going to school originally, and I said, Dad, you got to look at this. And he would look at me like, you're crazy, you know. And he still does that sometimes. But he goes, that's baloney what you're talking about. I said, Dad, just listen. You gotta change your diet. And then he ended up getting angina. Everybody know what angina is? Chest pain because your arteries are clogging up, and then a lot of people goes up into their jaw. I mean, it's not a fun experience. And he all of a sudden went in and said, what the heck is going on? This is horrible. They went in and they go in through an artery in your leg, and they go up and they take pictures of the little camera of all the little blood vessels in your heart. Well, he had a complete blockage of his coronary artery. I mean, completely closed down. So what they do is they put a stent to open it up. So that had to be, I was still in school then, so that was in the 90s. And I was telling him about changing his diet back then. And they put a stent in, they put him on statin drugs. Statins are like Lipitor and those types of drugs to bring cholesterol down. He said, your cholesterol's a little high, that's why. And then they gave him a pamphlet that said, foods to avoid. So anything with fat, you avoid. Okay, because fat does what? How well have you guys been programmed? Fat
clogs your arteries.
Clogs your arteries, right. So for 10 years, okay, probably over 10 years, he avoided every fat, every dietary fat that you can imagine, he avoided. Like the plague. Forget it. He's like, even chicken, he stopped eating chicken, he stopped eating meat, he was eating like zero fat in his diet. And of course they put him on a drug to bring cholesterol down. So when he gets his cholesterol taken, it's like 140. It's like next to nothing. No cholesterol. And the doctor's happy, he's happy, everybody's happy. And I'm telling him, you got to have a little more variety in your diet. You still have a belly. Now this is the magic question. If you're not eating fat, why do you still have a belly? Right? This is fat, right? So he never questioned it. Oh, it's because I'm Italian. That's why I got a belly. We all Italian people have a gut, right? Long story short, about a couple years ago, he starts getting the same pain, jaw, angina, and he goes, "Oh, this feels a lot like 15 years ago. What is this all about?" And he's like, when he went up there, they looked at all his other arteries while they were up there. They were all clean. I haven't eaten any fat. My cholesterol's been 140, and this is over 10 years. What is going on? This doesn't make any sense. So he goes and has a stress test. You guys know what that is. You get on a treadmill. They shoot you up with cardiolite, which is a dye, radioactive type dye, and they took probably 64 pictures of his heart. And they had him going, cranking him out. Didn't get any angina while he's on the treadmill. No chest pains. They said, the guy goes, we took pictures of your heart, 67 pictures, there's no problem. We'll see you next year. So my dad goes, okay. He's out walking, weather's starting to get nice like this. It was about this time of year. So he's out walking, and he gets it again. He gets angina, chest, jaw, pain in his shoulders and chest, and he goes to his family doctor. Family doctor says, well, what's it remind you of? He goes, well, it's exactly the same feeling I had when my artery closed down back in the 90s. He goes, well, what's your cardiologist? He goes, well, he's the top cardiologist, around. So they call him right there on the spot, and he says, set up a heart catheterization where you go up, and he goes, I understand your stress test was negative, but go up and look around with this little camera. So they go up, they look around. Same cardiologist who did the stress test 2 weeks ago. 4 clogged arteries, nearly 100%. He said, you're getting quadruple bypass next week. And at that time, I was just learning about some of these. I've talked to a lot of you guys about these genetic clotting factors, which means your cholesterol could be 140, but if you have this genetic clotting factor in your blood, you're going to clog arteries. You're going to fall over. You see these athletes that are, out running and they fall over and die of a heart attack, clogged arteries. They all have this genetic clotting factor. So we sent him out. I happened to send him out before he got that heart cath. It was like the same week. So he went out, and when they got the results back, he was already in getting this quadruple bypass. When he got out and everything was okay, I go, you'll never guess what your numbers were. I said 0 to 32 is normal. You are triple in these genetic clotting factors. He was I think over 117 or 162. It was some astronomical number, which means you're going to form clots. You're going to get clogged arteries if you don't address that. And we have a family history of heart disease. So a lot of people with family history, if you mention to them, you say, hey, do this test because I want to screen for family history, the insurance will not recognize it. I had another patient come in. She had every person in her family who died by the age of 50 of heart attacks. So I said, you really should get this done, because she was already, before she became a patient, being treated for high blood pressure. So I said, you should go get this test done. It's very inexpensive. And she's like, well, don't worry, my cardiologist knows my family history. I'll tell him about the test. He'll run the test. We'll be good to go. She goes in to see the cardiologist. The cardiologist says, are you having angina and chest pains? She goes, no, everybody died. I'm getting close to 50. I want to see what's going on. So he goes, if you're not in the emergency room with chest pains, I'm not going to run this test. So she comes back to me. He's not going to run the test. I said, well, we'll do it privately. We'll bypass it. $19. There's a private lab. Go get the test run. So $19, she goes down. Within 48 hours, they send me the results. She comes back in, and I go, this is the normal. Hers was 4 times normal. I said, take this to your cardiologist, because these are the things that we're looking at when we talk about this. Being proactive, not waiting for the big crisis to make the change. Now, my dad, do I have his attention now?
Hopefully, yeah.
Now listen to this. He's in his 70s. Now they're starting to listen after 20 years. So,
your mom looks good.
And there's hope. There's hope. After 20 years, he's listening. And my mom, around the same time, about 2 months before he had this quadruple bypass, she ends up in the hospital. They're down in Florida, and she ends up in the hospital with a bronchial pneumonia, and they check her blood sugar. It's 400. And they said, it's just because of the infection. And you got high blood sugar. She's in there a week. They check her, they recheck her. They put her on drugs for blood sugar, 3 different drugs. It only dropped it to 200. They released her from the hospital, and she calls. She said, I still don't feel good, even though I'm out of the hospital. I said, well, what's your blood sugar? She said, well, best it's ever been is 170. That's with 3 different drugs. And I said, well, do you want to become, this is my question to her, do you want to become insulin dependent? And she said, no, which means you have to shoot yourself up with insulin. And I said, well, if you do, continue eating the way that the nutritionist, the diabetic specialist from the hospital, gave her a list of foods. I go, keep eating that way, and you will become insulin-dependent diabetic. And she says, well, I don't want to do that. What could I do instead? So I showed her, and I'm going to talk to you guys about it tonight, showed her how to eat. Now my dad goes through this procedure, goes and gets this quadruple bypass. Now granted, my dad doesn't cook. My mom cooks. So my mom now is feeling better. She's following what the diet guideline that I gave her. So she's cooking the way I told her to, which, believe it or not, has fat. Now her cholesterol was 265. And one of the things that you'll see that's a superfood are eggs. Now it's not egg whites, it's eggs, which means if you have a hen that's out running wild, eating insects and grass and normal food, not GMO food, but normal food, when you crack the egg open, it's going to look very dark orange. If you go to the store and buy a caged up GMO-fed egg and you open it up, it's going to look very pale, very malnourished if you look at the yolk. And what I'm saying is that organic, grass-fed, wild, cage-free type egg has a ton of nutrition in it. So I told her about this. She's eating, because she, again, doesn't want to branch out of what I showed her. The original diet I showed her, I just give her examples for breakfast, one example. So what did she do? Exactly what I told her. She ate 3-egg vegetable omelet for breakfast, salad with grilled chicken or grilled fish for lunch, and then something like dinner, vegetables, and protein. She basically ate like this for 8 months. Pretty much the same thing I told her. Now, this is the cool part. In 8 months, off of every diabetic drug, completely free of drugs, and lost 52 pounds, and blood sugar is 93 instead of 400, with no drugs, 93, which is normal. Now my dad, because he doesn't cook, he's eating the same thing because he doesn't know how to cook, so he's eating whatever she cooks. He loses the gut that was supposed to be with him forever because he's Italian. He loses the gut. He loses 32 pounds over the course of 8 months. And we put him on some herbs to bring that clotting factor I told you. It had already dropped 40 points on 12 weeks. I put him on a whole food, vitamin C, a high dose rather. And what do they make this from? Everybody's like, well, I get vitamin C at Sam's Club, which is ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid is just the shell. The meat of the vitamin C is actually copper. It's called tyrosinase. And they get that from juicing buckwheat leaf. So they juice the little green leaves of the buckwheat plant. So he's eating like 12 of these a day, and I have him on some herbs to thin the blood out because his blood was so thick with these clotting factors. Dropped at 40 points. He dropped 32 pounds, all off of his gut. And last year he competed in 5Ks, and he 70 and over. He got second place in his last one. He missed first place by 30 seconds. Now this is a guy who didn't really even exercise much. And so the cool thing is that after there's hope for all the stubborn people. After 20 some years, he's starting to listen, and he's now now that he's feeling better, he's actually not as strict as he was. Neither is my mom. I can catch him slipping up. And the funny thing is, it's like a little kid. You catch him doing something bad. They think I'm going to scold them. Like, don't eat like that. You guys are in your 70s. Eat however the heck you want. So anyway, that's my opening story. But with superfoods, I'm going to dispel some of these myth busting. Is what we're going to do today. The definition of the superfoods is it has to be dense in nutrients. So a lot of people say, well, look, it's a plant, it must be a superfood, or it has a certain color, it must be a superfood. It actually has to be dense in antioxidants, has to be anti-inflammatory, and it has to also allow the body to heal and repair and regenerate itself. So if it's not loaded with vitamins, loaded with minerals, and the other definition I like throwing in here is it shuts off disease-expressing genes. Okay, a lot of you, if you're up to date on some of the newer research, it's called epigenetics. And what that means is that they're showing that these diseases on your genetic profile, these disease processes have an on and off switch. If it's clicked in the on position, the likelihood of cancer happening, if this is a cancer expressing gene, if it's turned on, what do you think is going to happen? Cancer. If it's turned off, what do you think is going to happen? No cancer. Same thing with heart disease. If it's turned on, you're going to get heart disease. If it's turned off. And what it used to be when like I told you, I went to school back doing this pre-med program in the 90s, and what did the geneticists say, the professors there, what they would tell us is, there's no on or off switch. Whatever genes you get is what you're stuck with. You've heard that, right? You got this from your uncle so-and-so. Tough luck, you got the gene. I don't care what you do. You're going to get this disease because everybody in your family has this disease. Well, they have disproven that at Harvard, at Yale, every major high-end school, university, geneticists now have proven this repetitively, that you can shut off the genes that you got dealt, the bad ones. And the cool thing is you could turn on good ones. And how do you turn on and off genes? That's what gene modulators mean. That means the food you eat can turn them on, turn them off. They did a study on mice, and they gave the mice protein in milk, in cow milk, called casein. Now, casein is very, very, very rich in all these low-fat yogurts that everybody loves. The Greek yogurts, they're low-fat, and they're loaded with protein. Well, the protein they put in there is casein, which is a cow protein. It's a white protein from cows. And when they exceeded 20%, these mice, every single one of them, it turned their cancer genes on, and they developed tumors. Every single one of them. Now, in the same mice, when they brought casein down, under 20%, the tumors went away, shut off the cancer. So they were at will turning cancer on and off just by giving them certain foods. Okay? They did another study with prostate cancer. They took men with prostate cancer, checked their genetic profile. All of these guys with prostate cancer, all the cancer genes were turned on in the on position. They introduced superfoods and had them move, like walk. That's it, nothing crazy, just walk. Walking and more superfoods. In 4 weeks, over 500 cancer genes were shut off in a month's time. So, I mean, this is just unbelievable, because what it says is we're not stuck with what our parents give us genetically, or our family lineage. We're not stuck with the same genes. We actually, by our choices, can turn these genes on and off at will. So whether or not you move, whether or not you eat the right thing, and also what you think about can turn genes on and off. What happens if you think not right thoughts? Turning disease on or off? You're turning it on. You're turning it on with your thoughts. And there's a whole new field of research called psychoneuroimmunology. They literally show you shut your immune system off with the wrong types of thoughts. You can turn it on. You can actually boost antidepressant levels in your blood just by expressing gratitude or counting your blessings. They've done studies on all of this stuff. And it's pretty amazing what will happen if we change our thoughts or just become more aware of our thoughts. But today, all we're going to talk about is the food aspect, just putting certain foods in, turning things, the good things on and the bad things off, just by food. So that's our definition of superfood. So it's not what, and I love, Dr. Oz, but it's not always what Dr. Oz says is a superfood. It's not always what is on the cover of the latest whatever. It's not always. Actually, when you look at this, if we look at the Native Americans that were here before we got here, they had it down. They understood this concept of superfoods. You look at other countries, they understand it. You look at South America, some of these tribes that have never even seen a cell phone or a television, they live in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, and you look at what they're eating. They don't have cancer. They have all their teeth. The 80 or 90-year-olds are running around hunting animals. They're not wearing any underwear, but it doesn't matter. They're healthy.
Still look good.
They look good. Actually, they don't have fat on them. They're lean. It's unbelievable. If we looked at what they were doing, we would learn a lot. So that's what we're going to talk about. All right. So other cultures eat superfoods on a daily basis. North America, where we live, we're the most brainwashed, we're the most deficient, because we watch commercials. And the commercials say getting fortified grains is good. It's whole grain cereal. Now General Mills says, now with whole grain. So it must be healthy for us, even though they're fortifying it with garbage. Okay? We are by far one of the sickest countries, even though we spend the most on health care. We spend over 50% more per person on health care than any other country. And we're the sickest. Americans think superfoods are weird. If I showed you what they're eating in Europe or in South America, if I showed you what part they throw to the dogs is the filet mignon. The part they eat is the kidney or the heart or the thymus gland. They eat the innards. And some of you have old school grandparents that you remember that they saved the innards and chopped it up and put it in stuffing, and they ate stuff like that. We don't do that. You do that to one of our kids and they'll look at you like you're crazy. I'm not eating that. That doesn't even look right. So the point is that these cultures are still eating foods that are superfoods. A lot of European countries are still doing, again, a lot of the tribal people, they've even checked the ones in New Zealand. Again, these are ones that have never been exposed to anything, not even electricity. They live in the middle of the wilderness, and they go and live with these people, and it's amazing. They've done it with the Tibetans, people who live up in the mountains. They all do the same thing. They all eat the same style of superfoods. Okay? So, here's a quick overview. Again, this is not going to make the cover of any superfood magazine. Organs, bone marrow, and glandular tissue. The highest source of vitamin C on the planet is the adrenal gland. In a lot of these cultures, the elderly people in these tribes, if they were feeling run down, they would harvest the adrenal gland when they were cooking up supper. They would actually put the adrenal gland in the older people's concoctions in their stew, and that would restore their vitality. In Europe, they use the same approach. They call it live cell therapy, and in Europe, they will actually go and harvest. If someone has a thyroid problem, they'll actually harvest the thyroid from their livestock, and they'll make a mush out of it and give it to their thyroid patients, and they all get better without thyroid medication. So it's amazing that other cultures are doing this and are actually using it to heal themselves, but yet when we talk about it, we get like a deer in headlights look. Coconut oil, we all are familiar with some of these. The berries and the roots and the nuts, we're all familiar with those. Raw cacao powder, not a lot of people are even familiar with that. And it's a superfood. You know, everybody talks about blueberries. They measure how much potency an antioxidant it has. Blueberries have 4,600 on that scale, the antioxidant scale. That's pretty high. 1 teaspoon of raw cacao has 8,400, double from a blueberry. So you think about blueberries, oh, it's a superfood. Raw cacao powder just outperforms it. It has more minerals, it has more antioxidants, it has more zinc, it has antidepressants in it. Antidepressants, yes.
What is it exactly?
Grain or it looks like a bean, like what they make chocolate from. But when it's raw and organic, before they don't put dairy in it, they don't put sugar in it. I mean, it's like a raw. They either crush it into a powder or they make it into these little things called nibs.
Uh-huh.
And what I do is I put both in my shake. I'll put the powder and the nibs, and it'll taste like the old chocolate chip milkshakes. You know, the little crunchy chocolate chips in it. But except these chocolate chips are obviously intense superfoods. They're dense in zinc. They're dense in magnesium, iron. All of these minerals are really dense in. And then, like I said, the antidepressant qualities are unbelievable. So we'll talk about that. Cruciferous vegetables is another one. That comes from the family of cauliflower, broccoli, kale, and Brussels sprouts. There's chemicals in them that will shut cancer off and will also detoxify the #1 cause of breast cancer, which is toxic estrogen. They literally scavenge your toxic estrogen, bring it to the liver for breakdown. So the cruciferous vegetables are very powerful. We use those all the time in our practice. And then organic free-range eggs is another one that we will talk about here in a minute. Now there are a couple that didn't make my list that should probably have made my list. Grass-fed butter should have made my list. Okay? Grass-fed butter. If you could find grass-fed butter that's actually organic, it's hard to find where we live, but Kerrygold is a grass-fed butter that they import from Ireland. Once you start tasting what real butter tastes like, you're not going to want to eat margarine or I can't believe it's not butter. I mean, the stuff in there is extremely toxic. These oils are extremely toxic. The stuff in real butter is actually a superfood. It will actually heal the thyroid function. It will actually give you selenium. It'll give you all the cofactors that you need to build stronger, healthy cells. Now, every cell in the body is made from fat. And if you don't eat fat, how's your brain is 60% fat, how's it going to repair itself if you're not eating good fats? Problem is we're getting into all the bad fats. Bad fats are canola oil. Bad fats are these seed oils, soybean oil, cottonseed oil. These are extremely toxic and they're in almost everything. Corn oil, extremely toxic stuff. So that's what they fill in a lot of our foods, and they'll say, well, it's not bad. Have Crisco instead, or margarine instead. And that stuff is the most toxic chemical you can put in your body. Okay? So organs, like heals like with the organs. So we'll go back to the Native American tribes. If the elderly people were having heart issues, what part of the animal do you think they would put in their stew? The heart. And what do they find? They get healthier. They restore function. They're able to go and run and chuck the spear at the animals again. They start to revive. So like heals like. Kidneys will help the kidneys. So a lot of the nutrients that we use will have the extract from the repair blueprint inside that organ. They'll have that in there and they'll couple it with a lot of these vegetables. So people will look at the nutrient and they'll say, this is supposed to be vitamin C, but it has adrenal glands in it. What are you trying to kill me? But no, we've restored people's heart function with these animal parts and the bovine parts. We've seen people reverse congestive heart failure with giving that. We've seen people reverse their thyroid problems. We've seen people. I just had a guy today who was diagnosed with secondary hypoparathyroidism. It's a long, long name. Anyway, the parathyroid gland is what regulates blood calcium. And he was getting calcium deposits into his tendons, into his legs, into his kidneys. He was a wreck. Finally, someone decided, his wife, who's actually a nurse, decided, get your parathyroid checked. She's smart because it was 109, and the normal range is around 11 to 50. He was almost 110. And who knows how many years he's been like that. What did I give him, guys? See how smart you guys are. Parathyroid is what I gave him. Okay, I did it for 8 weeks. Sent him for labs. So we can't just guess that we're helping people. We sent him for blood. What do you think his labs look like when we got it back today? 24. From 109, he dropped over 80 points in 8 weeks. And his wife almost fell out of her chair because she's a nurse. And you know what they do, by the way? Medicine? They can't get the parathyroid to shut off. They burn it, freeze it, or cut it out. So hey, we don't know how to get this gland to work. Let's carve it out. I mean, kill it, right? That's the mentality. If it's not working and we give you drugs, if the drugs don't work, we cut it out. And what I'm saying is that why not feed the gland? You know, give it the blueprint for healing, and it knows how the body can heal itself. But you got to give it what it needs. I'm not able to get this video for you, but if you're in the office, there's a YouTube video that shows how this works, the science behind this. It's amazing. If you type in, everybody familiar with YouTube? Some people. There's a little search engine at the top. If you put in antigen, which is ANTIGEN, antigen specific, SP, everyone know how to spell that, right? Specific. Okay. Antigen specific oral, ORAL, tolerance. So antigen specific oral tolerance. And it's a 1-minute video that describes exactly how this that has been used for hundreds of years. It shows the science behind it. It literally will show how you can turn off autoimmune diseases with specific nutrients. So you'll see, like on the video, the little nutrients will go down into the intestine, and then the intestine has an immune switch that will turn it on or off, and then it will send new cells out to shut off the damage. So if it's attacking the thyroid, it'll tell the body, stop attacking the thyroid. If it's attacking the liver, it'll send messages out saying, stop the liver attack. If it's attacking the brain, it'll send signals up to the brain, stop attacking the brain. And what happens is people get better. So we are able to see something like in 8 weeks, a parathyroid gland completely restore its normal function in 8 weeks. So that is really cool stuff. So check out that video. I will eventually get technologically advanced enough to where I'll be able to play the video right here for you guys, but I'm not quite there yet. All right. So that's just a little tidbit.
What's that last line say?
The last one, it says, but my supplements have meat parts in them. And there's a little sad face, a frown face. But my the best thing is the people who are vegetarian, And I'll let them kind of do their thing until they get to a point where like, I'll take the dang supplements. And what happens is they get better magically.
So the bovine stuff that's in the supplements are GMO-free?
Yes. Right.
Organic?
And actually that same company switched all their capsules just recently to all non-GMO, which is amazing because they source out, it's a huge company, so they source out a lot, and they found that there's a chance that some of their capsules may have had traces of GMO in them, and they shut production down and said, we're going all non-GMO 100% on their capsules, just to hold the food in there. So a lot of you notice that all of a sudden the capsules are all clear. You see they're all in there now, and you're like, well, what happened? This is a different product. No, it's just non-GMO container. So now this one everybody has heard of, but I like to reiterate it because a lot of people who are caffeine addicted, they want some kind of alternative caffeine. From an alternative caffeine source, green tea is probably the best source because of the EECG. Okay, now that's an antioxidant specifically for the brain, and they've done a lot of studies on antioxidant effects of green tea. They've done studies on weight loss, where they've actually had people swap out coffee for green tea, so it's almost the same amount of caffeine. Yet people, when they switch to green tea, because of the repair process that happens, they lose more weight than when they were drinking coffee. And they didn't change their diet. So there's some kind of repair process happening from the green tea. My favorite, raw cacao powder. Cacao. So it has chromium. Now chromium is what regulates blood sugar problems. So people with diabetes, you tell them that you can give them raw chocolate, they get excited, these diabetics. They're like, what? You can have chocolate? You can have this chocolate because this chocolate doesn't have sugar in it. But it has the mineral chromium, which helps you use sugar better, more efficiently.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The other night I made a smoothie. It was around 7 o'clock, 7:30.
Yep.
And I put a teaspoon of my raw cacao in. And I didn't sleep so good that night.
You won't. You won't sleep too good that night.
chocolate.
Unless you want to do spring cleaning.
Don't take it after 6
Yeah,
o'clock.
don't take it. It's not a pre-bedtime chocolate shake because you'll be ready to finish next year's taxes if you do it.
Yeah.
You'll be like, yeah, let's go. But if you have to deal with extremely challenging or annoying people, and you do it first thing in the morning, guess what? This will stop you from strangling somebody for sure. It's a natural antioxidant, a natural antidepressant, naturally rich, and I tell people magnesium is huge, but it's very rich in magnesium. It relaxes you, relaxes your muscles, it relaxes your blood vessels. So it really has a lot of neat things. It has nitric oxide upregulators, which is excellent for the arterial health. So raw cacao is one of these things that the Mayans in South America, they knew this. They used this in everything. Every concoction that they would make, they would mix it with these hot chili peppers. They would make it into drinks. They would eat this stuff all the time, and they were known for their endurance, their vitality, their longevity. So raw cacao. And a company that I like is called Organic Traditions. That's a company that makes the nibs, the little chunks, and they also make the ground powder, and it's all non-GMO, all organic or organically sourced. And there's another company called Navitas, and that's the one I showed you. Yeah, that one is pretty good as well. It's all organic and all. In a bag of it, it's a pretty good sized bag. They're probably around
That's a long time.
$10, $10.99, something like that. Yeah, and it does last. Remember, you're only doing a spoonful at a time, so it's not like it's a baking chocolate where you're putting a boatload of it in. But it's an amazing superfood. I will share my recipe. Those of you, I actually have one on our website at Life of West. It implements the raw cacao. And those of you who are local, I'm going to be demonstrating how to make those at the yoga room this Saturday. I'm actually doing one on detoxification for them, but they did open the invitation. They said I was allowed to invite you guys. They moved. They're on the top of 422 in that plaza across from that Speedway. The top of the strip there,
Yeah.
that plaza there. There used to be a Living Naturally in there.
Yes, yes.
It's across from that Pizza Hut.
Yes.
It's right there in that plaza. It's called the Yoga Room. And it'll be Saturday. Is that at 2 o'clock, Don?
Yes.
Saturday at 2. This Saturday at 2. But I'm going to show people all about detoxification, how to get the toxins out of your body. But one of the things we do is we show them how to make these shakes.
Oh, they're so good.
Oh, they're very good. And
You get addicted to them.
everybody thinks it's going to be disgusting because you tell them that there's
No.
Brussels sprouts and kale powder in there, and they look at you like you're crazy. It's going to taste horrible. And then they taste it, and they're like, oh, this is like a dessert. All right. Again, this one, a lot of people are aware of, but I like sharing it because some of the foods that we talk about, berries, roots, and nuts, people kind of are like, what exactly are you talking about? A root? What kind of roots do you want me to eat? Well, the roots that they show have the most potent antioxidant value are ginger and turmeric. Ginger and turmeric. Now those are amazingly potent, and a lot of cultures use turmeric. And what they found is that if you get the curcuminoid, which is the thing that makes it that color, if if you get small amounts of that, I mean, they tested it was very small amounts on a regular basis, 60% reduction in stroke just by, I mean, it's a huge protection of your arteries to go into your brain.
So how much of that a day would you need to take?
You don't need much. In fact, like some of the products that we use are called, it's called Vitanox. I have people take 1 Vitanox a day, and it has about 80 milligrams of a high-end, high-potency turmeric. And that's all you need. It also has the green tea. It has all the big antioxidants in it. But anyone over 50, I tell them take 1 Vitanox a day. Now, some people, if they're really inflamed, I'll up their dose a little bit. But for the most part, you don't need a lot. It's very potent. Ginger reduces inflammation and stimulates circulation. So people who have arthritis, a lot of times I'll give them something called Boswellia complex because it has ginger and turmeric in it. And then it has Boswellia, which is an herb that they've used for years for arthritic problems. And it has celery seed as well, which is another anti-arthritic herb. So it's like a 4-in-1. The only issue is the people who are hooked on the thought that fats are not good for them. Because the only way you absorb these things is with good fats. You have to eat good fats. The Boswellia you have to eat with fat, and you will literally get 5 times the amount of the absorption. So I tell people, if you're not eating fat for that meal, do not take your Boswellia complex. It's not worth it. Or take 5 times the amount that I recommend. So if I do 2 tablets for breakfast, you have to do 10 tablets for breakfast. Or do some good fat with breakfast. Do an egg, or they did this. The study they did was interesting. They did 2 eggs and a piece of bacon. Is all they did to see that 5-time increase in the absorption of all these anti-inflammatory nutrients. And it stays in your system for 60 hours. So I mean, it's once you eat it, I mean, it stays in and it keeps working. And that's why they think it could reduce the risk of stroke. It's because you don't need much of it, but it kind of builds and accumulates in your system. Really cool stuff. Everybody knows about berries. Obviously, berries are great. I'm not going to talk a lot about berries, but I will talk about one more root that I love, that I use a ton of, and that's the beets. Now, whether it's the greens or whether it's the root, the beet will heal almost any liver or gallbladder issue that people come in with. I put people on beets in beet extracts, and all their stomach conditions get better because you're opening up the liver and the gallbladder. It heals the liver and the gallbladder. Beets also increase nitric oxide, which is excellent for performance. So these hockey players I take care of. Yes?
What about carrots and radishes and potatoes?
Carrots, radishes, good. Potatoes if they're sweet potatoes. The white potato has some potassium and some, but the amount of sugar in a white potato, it really outweighs the benefit. So white potatoes will get converted directly to sugar, which will actually cause, some of these things we talk about with diabetes and getting thick through your midsection. Sweet potato, that orange color in there is actually the same antioxidant that you see up on the screen here.
Can you overdose on carrots?
Not if they're raw. If you're cooked, I mean, you could probably get away with it. But when they're raw, I used to juice 20 pounds of carrots a week, and my skin was a little. I glowed a little bit, but other than that, it's fine. I mean, I would put raw ginger root in with my carrot, and I'll put a little celery. So celery, carrot, and ginger. I mean, excellent. There's nothing better than juicing some of this stuff. Beets I used to juice quite a bit of. I still juice. I don't juice as often as I used to. But the beetroot is amazing because of the effect it can do on the liver and gallbladder. But I give beet juice to these people who are into hockey or sports that really require them to push themselves. I'll have them do 6 ounces of beet juice before their hockey match or whatever you call it. And they will literally run circles around the people that they used to have trouble keeping up with. So it has this ability to relax and dilate the blood vessels And it does it through something called nitric oxide, which you could take those expensive little tabs for nitric oxide that we talked about, or you could juice some beets and get the same effect. And most of that company also makes beet powder. So you can get powdered beets, but I like either freshly steaming them or taking the supplement. It works really well. Coconut oil is antiviral and antifungal. It has something in it called monolaurin. And monolaurin is the active ingredient in coconut oil. And the reason we prefer this extra virgin cold pressed is it can withstand heat. Most every other healthy oil that we can discuss here today will break down under very low temperatures. And when it breaks down, it is no longer that healthy for you. Olive oil is one of those. It's really good when it's cold pressed, extra virgin, that real dark green olive oil. You put a little bit on your salads. Fantastic for you. But as soon as you expose that to heat, it starts breaking down. A lot of the nut oils like walnut oil and sesame seed oil and macadamia oil, these nut oils, they're really good for you, but if you heat them, they become rancid. They break down.
I like a complaint I have about coconut oil. Man, stand there with that jar.
Oh,
And a couple times I put it in the microwave.
yeah.
I hate to do that.
Well,
But it's so
all you got to do is coconut oil will turn soft at 76 degrees. So all you have to do is run it under some warm water. You just turn the jar under warm water and it will turn into mush like right away. But it is one of those oils for appetite control I have people do. I'll have them mix it into their tea, a teaspoon into their hot tea, and drink it about 30-40 minutes before their meals. If they're having a lot of sugar cravings or their appetite's out of control, I'll have them start integrating coconut oil, and boy, this makes you feel full like now. You have some coconut oil and you'll be like, man, I fry the kids their pancakes, their buckwheat pancakes we make. I'll fry those on coconut oil, and it's amazing. They get the good fats with something that they think is a dessert, like a pancake. And our pancakes with the buckwheat, we only use 4 tablespoons of buckwheat flour for the entire stack of 8. So it's under 5 grams of sugar per pancake. Now, a regular pancake is over 50 grams of sugar in one pancake. So you think about that, 5 versus 50. And it's just as delicious, but I fry them over top of coconut oil. So coconut oil you can use for a lot of different things. But it is a very healthy fat. It has medium chain triglycerides. And these fatty acid chains, what they do is they help rebuild the cell membranes in our body. So if you're taking cholesterol drugs and you're not eating fat, what do you think is going to happen to your brain? They actually just labeled it on the FDA a couple of years ago. They made it mandatory that's saying that the statins will cause dementia. Why? Because it pulls the fat. 60% of your brain is fat. It pulls the fat out of your brain, and you end up walking around thinking that you're Superman, or worse. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Some people are losing it because of the fats that are being drawn out of the brain. Then they're not eating fat, so they're not replenishing it. So really good fat, coconut oil. By the way, grass-fed butter, another really good fat I told you about. They do make one from Organic Valley, which is a company that's a local. We actually get Organic Valley at some of our stores. But Organic Valley will make this certain butter called pasture butter. It's organic and it's called pasture butter. And that one is actually, so it's not just organic, but they eat the grass at the right times of the year where it has the highest nutritional value. So they actually, to find that around here is hard. So I always go back to Kerrygold because it's everywhere now. It's in Sam's Club, it's at Giant Eagle, it's everywhere. So the pasture butter, though, if you ever find Organic Valley pasture butter, that is actually even better than the Kerrygold.
And I did see that at Mark's.
Organic Valley pasture butter?
Yeah.
Ooh, baby. It's good.
I'll get you some.
I made a muffin recipe with, again, that didn't have all the flour we used. What did we use? Coconut. Yeah, coconut flour with the blueberries and all that, and then you put this grass-fed butter on them while they're still warm. Oh my goodness.
I make pancakes out of coconut flour.
Yeah. They're
And I
fantastic.
put the berries on.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. It's so good. Everybody, when I talk to them about eating this way, they all are like, "Oh, that sounds like it's you're eating bland or you're eating restricted." I said, "Oh, you're not understanding then what you're allowed to eat and what you should be eating, because it's the opposite of that." Yes.
That pasture butter, I gotta ask, does it have sodium in it?
I think they all come with salt in them. They may. I mean, I haven't seen it like without salt. That's a good question.
See, when I was growing up, we lived on a farm. My
Yeah.
mother- We made our own butter.
Yeah.
However, as kids, once we found out what other people's butter tasted like, we
Yeah.
would eat ours because they had no sodium.
No salt in it.
My mother would not put any salt in the butter.
Yeah.
And it was bland.
Yeah, and I think it probably wouldn't be tasting as good if it was no salt in
You
it.
know, I like everything grass fed, but I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up that way.
Yeah.
That was the odd thing. My mother used to make the butter. I mean, we had to churn and all that, but
Yeah.
it had no salt in it.
It had all the essentials for the nutritional value.
Yeah.
So, make sure the muffins you put it on have salt. But there is a good salt. This is actually another thing that should have probably made my list, and it's called Celtic sea salt. Now, Mr. Moss told me about the company. They've actually done studies on this company. It's called Salina Natural, and they actually have the brine that they tested from that company has the highest amount of trace minerals in it. 83 trace minerals in that particular sea salt.
And it's called
Salina Natural. Naturals or naturally?
Naturally.
Naturally. And online's the cheapest. I mean, all the stores carry it, but we found out that the website, Salina Naturally, is actually the cheapest, and the other stores are probably the most expensive. But it's good, and you can eat it, and it's actually healthy for your heart, healthy for your arteries. It's really, really good because it's so dense in minerals. Obviously, the worst type of salt is the sodium that you see in canned soups and whatnot. And then, of course, not sea salt, but table salt, iodized table salt is probably right up there with the toxicity level. So, it's just not good. Not good. There's such better salt out there. But the Celtic sea salt probably should have made the superfoods list. We'll talk about cruciferous vegetables. Now, the cruciferous vegetables contain sulforaphanes. That's the chemical that has been shown to shut off these destructive type of genetics and turn on the genetics, shut off cancer and turn on the genetics of repair. Excellent for liver detoxification, balancing hormones, and the magic chemical is called indole-3 carbinol. That is a scavenger that they've studied that will literally take the toxic estrogen out of your body, and that's the same estrogen that's linked to breast cancer and cervical cancer in women, and literally will scavenger that and just pull it out. And we also pick up estrogens through plastics. Those are called xenoestrogens. Unfortunately, the little crinkly plastic bottles that we drink water out of are loaded with xenoestrogen, and they're very toxic. Don't ever put hot food in your plastic Tupperware. That's a very good way to get toxins leached into your food. Or worse yet, if you ever see anyone microwaving plastic, smack them upside the head. Because it's going to leach a ton of chemicals into their food, and it's going to make them stupid anyway. You don't want that. If you're a friend, you'll say, "What are you doing?" Don knows that we use our microwave as a cabinet, right? So I put I'll use it like an extra shelf, I'll put stuff in there. People are like, "What's all this in here? I want to use a microwave." Well, we don't use a microwave. And they don't understand that. But microwaving is not good. It also pulls the toxic estrogen out for men. It's the prostate. Toxic estrogens will swell the prostate. So we put them on these cruciferous vegetables, and the prostate shrinks, which is pretty cool. Because then you can pee like a normal person and don't have to get up 7 times a night, which is always fun. And they did a color comparison of the organic cage-free eggs, and the one down here was the guy eating all the wild stuff, eating the worms and eating the grass. And if you look at how dark that egg is, that's what they should look like. And these ones kind of were fed grains, but they were roaming around, but they were just fed grains. They weren't like, hey, go fend for yourself. They were kind of spoiled here. And then this is kind of like the in-betweener, got a little bit of grain, a little bit of grass. But you can just see the density of nutrition. And again, it's rich in good fats and cholesterol. It's rich in biotin, in vitamin D, where everyone I sent for vitamin D on blood work comes back depleted where we live. Right, Carol? Depleted, everybody. But I sit by the window and read my book. It doesn't matter. You're going to be depleted in D, so you better get it in food. If you're not getting it through sunlight, and what happens when we do go out in the sun? What are we taught?
Sunscreen.
Sunscreen. What blocks all your D? 100% of vitamin D is blocked by sunscreen and makeup. So what do? We lather up with sunscreen. Oh, I spent the whole day, I got lots of vitamin D. No, you didn't get any vitamin D because you blocked it synthetically with SPF 8000. Right? Everybody goes, I don't want to, And what we need to understand is that we need to get good fats. If we had adequate minerals in our body, we wouldn't be getting burned so easy. Our skin would be stronger and healthier and more resistant to the sun. But we're weak because we're depleted in a lot of these things.
Would that be why you don't tan?
Absolutely. It's absolutely. Blood calcium and good fats. Actually, when people go to the beach, I'll put them on something called Cataplex F. F means fat. Vitamin F is an essential fatty acid. I'll put them on that. And the likelihood of them burning comes down a whole bunch, and they actually get color because it moves the calcium out of their blood and into their skin where it's protective. The reason people have issues is they're not protected. They are not protected. So, anyway, rely on good fats. Remember, every cell in your body, there's 10 trillion cells. Every one of them is made from cholesterol. The cell membrane is made from cholesterol. You need cholesterol. Your brain, everything is made from fats. All your hormones, testosterone in men, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, anything that ends in "-one" is a fat-derived hormone. You can't make normal hormones if you're not eating good fats. And people wonder why their hormones are so screwed up and why we have all these diseases. Mainly because we're taught that this is bad for us. These foods are bad, don't eat them. The worst was, I was talking about my dad, making fun of him a little bit. Oh, he'll throw the egg yolk out. He'll eat an egg white omelet. I'm like, you're missing the point. So anyway, he's still on the fence, so I invited him to come tonight, but he was afraid I was probably going to call him out. Anyway. So in conclusion, the idea is getting a variety of foods, and a lot of those foods are, again, not what we're accustomed to. So my homework for you is to come and bring some of these foods back. Obviously, find them organic, find them locally grown so you're not getting GMOs, and eat a variety of color. The more colors in these foods, the better. And if they fall under that criteria, they will make you feel amazing. First time I gave the superfood shake to my wife, she only had about a shot glass full, and she couldn't believe it of how she felt. The get up and go, the mental focus. It's amazing. You'll feel really good. We got to learn from the natives that were here before us because they understood this. They understood that you could heal your body if you put the right stuff in your body. And just remember that you should not be afraid of fats. Fats are needed for normal repair on all levels in our body, including hormones, including brain function, and all of that good stuff. And today I got a nice little card. I get nice cards all the time, by the way, but this is one of my favorites, so I figured I would share this one. This was a little girl who came to see us from Newport News. Does anybody know where that is?
Virginia?
Virginia. It's like 11 hours away. They came, and this little baby was damaged from the birthing process. So they bring the damaged baby. One arm is paralyzed like this, and this baby cried from the minute she was born. Oh, by the way, they crushed her kidney, they were pushing on her, and trying to pull, paralyzed her arm, crushed her kidney, could not hold down food at all, projectile vomiting constantly. Anything comes down, shot right back up at you. But worse off, constant pain, constant discomfort, constant crying. So anyway, they drive up and they stay for a week, and they get intensive care because we've seen them every day for a week because they're going back to Virginia, and they're hoping that we can help them. So we get them in the office. We end up checking the baby. We did the scan. All of you who are patients have got the scan where we check blood flow and nerve flow. If you haven't got the scan, talk to Don. He has that available at a discounted rate for the people attending here, right?
Yes.
All right, so Don's the man in the back to talk to if you want to get analyzed and checked out. He's the man to talk to. And anyway, long story short, her brainstem was completely choked off, probably from all the pulling and vacuum extraction or whatever they were trying to do. They had nurses pushing, they had others pulling. The little girl's crying constantly. Never slept, by the way, never slept at all through the night. So here's what the card says. Thank you so much for bringing this beautiful smile out. So she never smiled up to this point. So I'm going to pass this around, and on the back you can see what she said. The little baby smiling for the first time ever, and it happened as soon as we adjusted the brainstem. We use a little instrument. Some of you have seen it. It sounds like a woodpecker. As soon as I put that on her brainstem, baby stopped crying. The mom almost fell over. What? There's a button that you can push to make the baby stop crying? I said, yeah. So she goes on to say, I have never known a doctor to care so much about his patients. Thank you again, and hopefully we will be able to come back again soon. Love, Kenny, Lori, and especially Dakota. And thanks for the doctor's number in Virginia. We ended up finding her someone who does this approach in Virginia. And so it's amazing because this girl came back. This was probably 3 years later, and they told her that her kidney would never be normal, that she would end up losing the kidney function because of this scar tissue from them pushing on it. We ended up working on the area around her kidney this last time she was in, and she ended up having a growth spurt and growing a bunch, and they were monitoring it with these pictures, and literally that scar tissue had released from around her kidney, and her kidney ended up growing to be normal function, normal size. She was able to use her hand. She got full function back, sleep through the night, hold food down, no projectile vomiting. Of course, you'll see she's smiling now all the time. So the interesting thing is it's the power that made the body can heal the body. And that's what we're talking about here. All of these foods were put on the planet for a reason. It wasn't for us to go in there and mess with them, right? We're supposed to eat things the way they were given to us. So these are the original foods that we were designed to eat. We are deliberately poisoning ourselves, mainly because of all the baloney, all the marketing, and all the money-making schemes that are out there. And it's not having our health and safety in their number one interest. It's all about, unfortunately, monopolizing this whole agriculture. And what we need to do is get back to the basics, because the basics are what works. It's what allows the body to heal itself. So I thank you guys for coming out tonight, and we'll stick around for questions. So I appreciate it.